Oh, good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
What is the total strength of your class, actually?
Sir, that's 58.
58.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. So in the morning also, very few people have attended. So I'm just checking out whether the total strength is 55 or something more. So now we got around 48, I think. Okay. Right. So, right. Actually, we are in work from home. So I'm in my home now, but so anyway, I'm dealing with C programming today. So I just want to introduce to you. Of course, it's like what might be the light concepts of C programming will be introduced to you if possible. Because sometimes we need to deal with a lot of DSP. Uh, that means our data structures with Python. So I'm thinking to just move on with C during the initial stages, so that a small hint will be given to you using C, because C occupies a semester, of course, more than a semester if you really want to learn something in C programming. So, but still, I can introduce to you, so that if you had some interest, you can form as interesting groups in C programming, and you can do some things in a very good way. You can also practice some of the competitive programming techniques in C programming. I think Saurit once said that he got some idea on C and C++, I hope. And not only Saurit, I think few people also might got it, because you have something to learn in schooling and +1 and +2, I hope. You people can form some interesting groups. This is called something like IGs, interested groups in particular language. You can collaborate among yourself and have a good project or programming solutions among yourself. See, one thing is that in India we lack collaboration mostly, because in Western countries the professors will collaborate, and even the teaching assistants will collaborate among themselves to how to teach and all, and students will collaborate a lot. And all the famous companies like Sun Microsystems, or the Apple, or this all came from the people who are actually friends and collaborators among themselves. Small groups, the Sun Microsystem, the abbreviation itself is a Stanford University network, established by four young entrepreneurs and innovators, and one of them is an Indian. I think his name is Vinod Koshla, I think, and he co-founded the Sun Microsystem. Three Americans and one Indian. So if you come to Apple, also the Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak are the good collaborators, and they formed a lot of buzz during those days. You know that. So the Indian perspective is that most probably it's not about India. We basically we want to go outside and we study there, but after we study there we never collaborate. Even the Indians never collaborate among themselves. They never come back, or they never collaborate. Actually, they settle in their lives by doing the jobs. This is what, of course, we had our culture in getting the jobs and finally settling in this one. But if you see the ancient scientists like our Satyendranath Bose, not ancient, but recent scientists like Satyendranath Bose and all, they have worked in India, in Kolkata University and other universities in Kolkata and all. They're very famous, that's all. But can we see an Indian who get a Nobel Prize from India after C.V. Raman? No. The reason I don't know why, because a lot of stories are there that tells that Indian government is not completely encouraging this. Even British times are more better than the Indian times now, I think. because I heard the stories of, there is a man called Mukherjee from Calcutta. So that means the West Bengal. He was working in Kolkata University, I think. He is the father of the second test tube baby. But a lot of politics have come into way. You can study about him. Now his Sishya, that means the student, has revealed all these things because his student is a very good, eminent scientist in this test tube baby technology and all. So he revealed that in Wikipedia. You can see about him. His name is something like Mukherjee or something. So you can see that this person is constantly, he was harassed in the university, and the people who don't know what is the subject also harassed this person in such a way that, um, uh, bearing every day to go to the court and feeling all these things. I think he died actually. He committed a suicide in the court itself. But later on, it was revealed that in 1962 or 65, I think the first test tube baby was born in England, in some University of Edinburgh or something. I don't know. But this person has made it possible, and her name is Durga. She is still alive, a baby. I think she's married also. And but nobody believed him, because there is no equipment in India. He used a refrigerator to make it born. He used all the technology that is available in house, so he made it. So nobody believed it, but it happened. And his student revealed it recently, maybe in 90s or something. It was there in Wikipedia. So this type of harassments have gone through. Even the recent movie of rocketry, the Nambi effect is there. It also shows that how a upcoming scientist who knows how to work with liquid fuel has been put into political radar. So finally, he was also hurt. India always makes its gains like that. Yeah, that's correct. The reason is like this. You also know that now we say that the V2 rockets, in the morning I said, mm, they are the real effect behind this NASA rockets and Soviet Union. One day Abdul Kalam went to NASA station, and he was in a waiting hall, and it was in the Wings of Fire, I hope, which I studied. And he has seen a very beautiful color board which is painted, and in that it says that some black colored skin soldiers are firing rockets towards the white colored British. Then Abdul Kalam has asked the scientist behind him that what is this painting and what it represents. The proudest moment for our India is that NASA is really remembering who invented the rocket in the warfare technology first time. So invention is done in China, of course. I know that it is claimed, but still we don't know who invented the gunpowder. Some people say that it is in India, and some people say that it is in China. Of course, Chinese used for the first time in festivals and all. But that scientists said that they are the soldiers of Tipu Sultan from Mysore, and Mysore is the first kingdom in the world to use the rockets against enemies in the war. And of course, these British were astonished. That's the reason why they have lost three wars and they have won the final war. I think they took these rockets to England, they studied a lot, and finally they made their own version and launched it in American Civil War. And the Americans also found this rocket astonishing, and they also made their own technology, combustion rocket, something they prepared, and they finally released against British itself. Then the British took the same technology back to Europe, and I think from that the Germans also gained some popularity in making the rockets with that technology, and finally they made V2 during World War II. And that is the reason they said the origin of rocketry usage in wars or any other thing was first invented by Mysoreans. That to the Tipu Sultan army. That is the reason why we had that painting on the wall. We had a very great past, but we don't know what is our future, but no, not a great present. So I hope I always ask the students to think about the dreams of the free India. Our ancestors in 1947, first when they were raising the flag, they always thought about free India, and they have dreamt of a great India. And that is the reason I think the Jawaharlal Nehru has given IITs and dams for agriculture. He made a progressive impact on India, and later on, all the prime ministers have done their best in all sorts of things. But still, we people are blind in all the aspects. We believe everybody, we believe whatnot, we never see who is a good statesman, we never see who is a good leader, and finally we elect stupids. And at present, everyone, I don't believe they are the great statesmen all over India. Nobody is there. Everybody has his own thing to sit on the throne, and they never bother about this. And this is the reason why there is no science nowadays. Even in IITs, they are not the topmost universities among the top 100, or maybe if some politics also happened, they should be standing there. Okay, fine. I always say to the students that it is not because of the universities or the professors, it should be because of the students that India should stand up, and it should go for great scientific achievements. Of course, most Indians are doing, and when you go to Western countries, at least you will find maybe one out of five great scientists or innovators or professors should be an Indian in America, not in India, I hope. So, better Indians should work for India, at least change India a little bit. One day, we hope that it should change. Let's come back to C programming. And do you know who has invented C? Anybody can answer?
Sir, I know about C++. It's Jarnis Torstrop, I guess, in C and Bell Laboratories.
Okay.
Dennis Ritchie's.
Yes, Dennis Rich is C. And Saurita, I need to correct you. Actually, it's not Bjorn. I used to call like that, but it's actually Bjorn Stroustrup. The reason is in the Scandinavian languages, the J is actually taken as yo. Okay, they never call it J, they call it yo. So we should call him, spell his name as Bjorn Stroustrup. Okay, right. Okay, so Dennis Rich is the inventor of C, and we should not say he is the only inventor. There is a lot of team, and Rich has actually led the team of this particular the C programming development at the end of 1970s or something. I think by 78 C is ready. The irony is C is prepared for making an operating system called Unix. So Unix was actually built using assembly language code. I think I used to say always I have prepared an assembler, right? So I will also explain you how the C compiler, early C compilers used to work, and I will tell you why the present C compilers are turned aside a little bit. So actually, the early operating systems, now you are seeing Mac, right? For all these things, the Linux, Mac, or whatever the versions that are there of this appearance has an ancestry from Unix. And Windows has a different ancestry. It is disk operating system. And most of the operating systems are prepared in assembly language code. I will also show you an example of an assembly language code later on, because if I write C programming, I can make it into an assembly code, and then I can also show you as binary code because we have commands in the terminal. So one thing that happened is that when they are preparing to write 6 lines of code in C, they have to spend around 60 lines of code in assembly language code. So that is the reason some people have thought that instead of Fortran, Pascal, which are the famous languages at those times, and COBOL for the mainframes and all big computers. So people thought about making something like, why can't we use invent another programming language, which could help us in dealing with Unix operating system, preparing Unix operating system, developing. So they formed a team in Bell Laboratories, and Dennis Rich has worked on C. And the C is a revolution in those days. It's not like Pascal. See, COBOL never died, but later on you can see the Fortran, the Pascal are not much used nowadays, right? We never heard about it. But our professors, when I'm studying in Geetham, they learned Pascal, Fortran, and now the current professors who are there in Geetham are assistant professors back those days when we are studying. So they all studied in their engineering the Pascal and Fortran, but they taught us C programming. Now, as we have learned C and now we are teaching Python to you. So, but now we cannot compare that Pascal and Fortran with C programming. The reason is C is now considered as an ancestor for C++, Python, Java, Go, whatever language you want, that is actually taking every syntax, most probably inspired from C programming. And that is the reason why still C programming is in use and never died actually. Though invented at the end of 1970s, still it is creating a huge buzz. You know, Dennis Rich is no more, but Bjorn Stroustrup videos are there in YouTube. He gives a lot of seminars. Now he always argues that my baby is always against this Python and Java. He says that Python might take over the world, but still my baby is getting popularity. Why he says it as his baby? The reason is it is his brainchild. And of course, why we call it as C++? The reason is in C programming we have a symbol called plus plus, which we call it as increment. So if I say I plus plus, it means that I is equal to I plus 1. So one increment. So that is the reason when Bjorn Stroustrup has started his venture on C++, he was directly getting inspiration from everything except C in and C out instead of printf and scanf. Most of the declarations, the way you write the program in C++ is equivalent to C, most probably. And that is the reason he just wanted to name it after C++ only, so after C only. Then he thought of some names, of course. There is a history, I forgot it actually. So he thought, I'm just using all the concepts of C, using some extensions, changing some. So there is a concept called structure in C programming. The same structure, the structure only accepts something like few data types, like properties. Maybe I can say a structure student. So in that I can accept something like int roll number, char star name. So it char star in the sense it is equivalent to string in Python. You can accept multiple characters there. Float fee, the fee you pay, actually the float in the sense we have rupees and paise, right? So these are the only things that are accepted in structures. Now Bjorn Stroustrup has thought that why can't we give importance to data? Now, in C programming, we don't know which function actually modifies a data. So Bjorn Stroustrup thought that, of course, this is a long process of discussion among many programming scientists, but he implemented it very perfectly so that C++ become next famous language for object-oriented programming. So he introduced the notion of classes. Class is an extension. Of course, I can say it as structure plus plus. Okay, it's an increment of structural property. So structure, he made it like that. Now you might ask me, why don't he make the same name structure and modify it? No, he wants to just make the structure there itself. He don't want to modify structure. Structure should be structure uniquely. And he made another thing called class. So why he made class? Because he got an inspiration from the real world class theories. Okay, class theories in the sense like our living beings. You know the Darwin's theorem, right? How he divided every animal and everything on this earth into different classes. So the same thing he tried to implement. So he called it as class, and this class accepts both the data and also it accepts the functions that modify the data. See, if you have written something like 20 million lines of code, maybe 20 lakhs of lines of code, maybe, we don't know. So in this case, how do you know that which function is trying to modify which data? There might be some corruption among the data. So so to make everything into consideration, see, if somebody has asked, if there are people like okay, your mother has given you few work, so you are around 10 brothers. In olden days, we our ancestors used to have around 10 or 20 people, right, in the house itself, because they are joint families and all. So if each person is attached to some so today you need today you are the in charge for cleaning, so today you are the in charge for cooking, today you are in charge for so and so something. So every in charge and what he is doing should be grouped together, right? So somebody is there in the book to keep the bookkeeping, right? This name. So Ram is the in charge of cleaning today. So Lakshman is the in charge of cooking today. So like that, how we write. So this person tries to modify something. Cleaning in the sense he is modifying something, right? He is doing some action. So a function will always deal with some data in coding. So how do you know that which function is dealing with which data? So that is why we started to club together. So in this case, when the clubbing has been done, so the data and the functions both are there side by side, and they are put into one package called class. So he made it like that. Why can't we use functions to push it into the structure? Then the structure is turned into class. So anyway, we discuss about classes in Python, class object oriented programming, when we introduce in the data structures with Python. But I'm just telling you what is the relation between C++ and Python and all. So after C++ became more famous in 1980s, early 1980s, and after that, and still it is proceeding now also, a lot of programmers will do C++ coding, because if you try to deal with NVIDIA graphic cards or for the parallel processing, so I'm doing in Python at present, but still C++ is a good one. So all hardware type of coding is very effective when you code it in C++ or C, because they are the direct interaction with the CPU. I think I have discussed with you about the different properties of C. Now, how many of you agree that I don't know who will agree that C is a portable language? Okay. Uh, Pradeep. Okay, right. Uh, so Pradeep says that it is a portable language. Any other person who wants to contradict it, whether it is a portable language or not?
Sir, it's a portable language, sir.
Okay. Hmm. So what do you mean by portability? Can anybody tell me?
Sir, it like C can be run on any machine which supports C.
Okay. Right. So portability in the sense, if we can run on any machine, so you are saying that it's portable, right? Anybody is there who can support that it is not portable? Anybody sure that it is not portable?
Sir, actually, there are other like many interpreters like dev and all. So for that, we need to change it a little bit, like using namespace std we used to mention like that.
Okay, right.
So
Okay.
codes need to be little bit changed.
Okay. So code needs to be little bit changed, right? Okay. Right. So I will do one thing. I will tell a small example. One day, I am doing my C programming in GCC compiler, GCC, which we are using in Linux, right? So I will tell you this. I will show you this one, GCC compiler. Okay. So you have this, right? Is it visible to you all?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay. So GCC version, right. So this is possible. This is called the GCC version. That you can see that. 1 second, internet is unstable. Okay. So I will have the latest version every time, and if there is no GCC version, it says that it is wrong. But here, because we implement we install Xcode, it works with this particular function. So the GCC command works here because the compiler is installed. GCC compiler for Mac, this one. So I'm doing my C programming in GCC compiler in Mac. So I had an object code which is converted. So executable code. Now let us say I'm doing something like vi sample teach.c. So I'll write the programming. 1 second. Int main. Right. I will go back to this and write something like this. Printf hello world. Okay, and return 0. And so this is how I want to just tell it to you that I have written a program. This is a VI editor. Both in Mac and Linux, it works the same. And when we come here, we compile it like this. Sample teach.c. And I think I want to make it like this. Okay, -o, that means the object file, st. I'll write it. Okay, now /st hello world, and you can see that hello world has been printed just now, right? This is the output that I got. And see what I have done here is when I compile, I am telling it that the compiled object file. So after compilation, the final version that you got is object file. Then you might ask me, what is an object file? So object file is something like a file that contains zeros and ones. Okay, so that are understandable by, it's a binary file. So the C language, the .c file which you have written just now is a high level language code because it is all in English. It is a high level language code. When you compile it, there are different things that are done by the compiler. I will tell you what are the things that are done by the compiler, what are the jobs that are done by the compiler, and the final version that comes is actually an object file. Okay, so this object file works with the CPU so that the CPU can execute. Now, when my friend has asked, let us see whether this file has been created or not. Let us go back to our users, and yeah, you see, you can see this is an executable file, whichever I have selected, right? So whenever I try to execute this, you can see that it has executed hello world and it has done it. So it's an executable file. So my friend has asked me that my teacher has said that we need to do a project to print hello world, a small project. So when he asked me, I have written the code right already in C programming, but I don't want to reveal the code. So I said that, okay, my friend, I don't want to give my code because you will copy it and both will be caught. And so I will give you directly the executable file. Anyway, sir will see only the execution now. So I have given the executable file. So I copied it, pasted in his pen drive, and I have given to him. This person blindly took this pen drive, connected to his system, and he has run it in Linux GCC compiler. He thought both are this output is from the GCC compiler. Okay, so when this output is from the GCC compiler, he thought, okay, I can run this one, but it did not run, and it said that I cannot recognize what you have written. And his processor is AMD and my processor is Intel. It could not run on the system. I did not run it. So the portability comes, the issue of portability comes here. What is the issue of portability? It is not about taking a .c file and running it. See, most probably in the market of software engineering, when you are preparing something, well, for example, I take this as an example. So you see this Office, right? Do you know this Microsoft Word? When I click this word, which I am showing to you, are you able to see what I am showing?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Okay. So when I click this Microsoft Word, it will open to me and I can type something. Remember, Microsoft Word would have been coded in C++. They never gave me the code, right? They just launched it directly. They have given me the executable file. This is called executable file. When I start clicking it, by double clicking it, it starts executing and it shows me white paper on which I can type something and all the buttons will work. The entire frame is actually prepared using C or C++. Most probably they are prepared in C++ because operating systems are most probably prepared in at most C++. And I have found that Solaris from Sun Microsystems is the first operating system at the prepared in and some of the lines are prepared in. So now you can imagine that one second, it's unstable. Yeah, now you can imagine that the output file which I'm showing now, which I have highlighted, the ST is almost equivalent to the Word file which I have shown you now. So in both the cases, I am not providing you the code. I am providing you the output. So Microsoft is entirely closed environment. So it is not open source. Open source is something not free, but open source is something like you can edit it. So open source. So that is the reason why GitHub, many things are uploaded in GitHub. And nowadays GitHub is bought by Microsoft, and still Microsoft Satya Nadella, when he came as CEO, is now not encouraging everything as open closed source. Because he bought GitHub, he is encouraging people to define apps which are open source. So he wants to collaborate with the world itself. And in 1980s and 90s, the companies like Microsoft, Apple, and Xerox, this IBM, this type of companies had a lot of competition among themselves. So they had their own hardware and they had their own software. They never shared with the public. So public never got any share. And now you can be a community leader for Microsoft apps, and you can develop some apps in it using C or C++ or a Python, whatever you want, and you can make it. You can upload it in the GitHub. You can collaborate with somebody outside your country or inside your country, and you can actually develop in collaboration. So this all happens when the code is available. But now the closed source like the Microsoft Office or whatever, in my scenario, I don't want to share my code with my friend because he might copy it. I just gave him the output of that code. The output is something like my, the executable file, but it is not executing there. So this is where I said the portability comes, like whatever the your friend has said that it can be done in any machine. Yes, if you directly give the code like printing hello world, if there is a C compiler, definitely this code will execute, but it is not the case. For example, recently I can say something, I will give a great clarification by this. Microsoft Word is prepared for Intel. That means if you the executable file of Microsoft Word which I am showing you now is a binary file which is understandable by CPU. Whatever you are seeing on the monitor is not seen by CPU, right? That you understand. It's a binary file which is actually understandable by the CPU. When CPU runs only, it will be shown onto your monitor. Okay. So when I click on this particular Microsoft Word, there is some appearance that is coming, but the entire thing is actually a binary one, which is understandable by CPU, and CPU is executing it. If it is not understandable by the CPU, how can this file be executed? Because every object file or executable file will only be executed only if CPU understands its binary code. So that means this Microsoft Word is in a binary format, which is not, the code is already compiled. The compiled one is now converted to an object. The compilation is done by converting the high level language into object oriented, object language, not object oriented. So this is a binary file .o. So this object file or the binary language file is now sent as an output to us. So now when we click it, the CPU starts running the code. So when the CPU starts running the code like this, you can see here, then the everything appears on the screen. Now my point is, if this Microsoft Word, which is done for Intel chip, that means the CPU, the Intel CPU can only understand this binary code. Now what happens, my Mac Pro is Intel. I preferred only for Intel. The reason I will tell you. So I was afraid that they might give me M1 when I ordered this laptop, because this was already closed and Apple is only launching M1 chips. So now I thought something like this. If this Microsoft Word is installed in my system, it will never run because the chip is M1. One second. Yeah, sorry for the disturbance. Right. Coming back. So if I try to run this Microsoft Word on M1 processor, it will never run, because the Microsoft Word which I have shown you now is an executable file that can only be executed in Intel. It can never be executed in M1. It can never be executed in M1 because M1 doesn't understand. For example, I will tell a general example. I have written a note in English and somebody has converted it in Telugu. Okay. So I think this will only be understandable by Telugu people. It is not understandable by Bengali people. And somebody has converted the English note which I have written into Bengali. And this cannot be read by Telugu people, and only Bengali people can read it, right? The same thing happens here. The M1 can understand some binary code which is really understandable by it, because every CPU only understands binary code, and the way it understands is different. So Intel is different from AMD, AMD is different from M1. So all this difference really affects your executable files. So a program that is compiled and executed in GCC compiler of Mac might not run. It's not about program, the compiled file I am talking about, the executable file, which it might not run in your Linux GCC compiler. Then that is the reason why you say it is not at all portable. And that is the reason why you say it is not at all portable. For M1, what the Apple has done, they have given a software interpreter, so you can run Microsoft Word, which actually converts the entire binary code into M1 understandable binary code. That means the Intel understandable binary code is converted by some software into M1 understandable binary code, and by that you can run it. So I thought that this might slow my process of execution for some programs which are designed by Intel, for Intel, because now Intel chips are very famous. Most softwares are designed for Intel and not M1. I hope you understand what is the case of portability. Pradeep and some other person who might have said that it is portable. Did you understand now why it is not portable C? Hello.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Right. So this is the reason. Now there is something that is different. Anyway, I will explain you in the next class with some board and all. Now coming to Python. So in Python also I can create a PBY. Okay. So sorry, PYB. So Python bytecode. Okay, bytecode. Because you have virtual machines, for each CPU or Intel, AMD or M1. Now in C programming, you are converting a high level language into binary code understandable directly by the CPU. Coming to Python, you are converting, that means you are compiling and interpreting a Python code into a byte code, not binary code. You are interpreting it into a byte code, which is actually understandable by virtual machine, not the CPU directly. There is an intermediate platform called virtual machine. So the same byte code can be directly pushed into any system, whether it is AMD, Intel, or any other chip or M1. You can directly give your friend the byte code which you have already converted and compiled and converted, and your friend can execute it now on any machine. But it is not in the case of C programming. So when we get a board, I will just explain each and everything in diagrams, and we will also write our first C programming, then you will understand it. I think now we can shut down this class. The time is up. Bye bye for this period. We will meet at 3 o'clock.
Thank
Any
you, sir.
doubts in this? You can ask me
No,
now.
sir.
Okay. Any other person? Any doubt?
No, sir.
Okay, fine.